Today we're looking at Sigma's 18 to 35 Art Series zoom lens. Now this is a wide and fast zoom lens with a constant f-stop of an f1.8, and it is an autofocus lens. This is the stills version. Sigma does make a SIN version of this lens with manual focus. That's available in additional mounts such as PL. Now, similar to most autofocus lenses, up front we have the focus ring, and as you can hear, it does have soft stops. It doesn't have hard stops, so when you get to the limits, both in close focus and infinity, you can spin past them, but there is a definite change in torque on that focus ring. Now back here, we have the zoom ring, and this of course does have hard stops, and as this is an EFS lens or an EF lens, there's no iris ring. So let's jump into some of our tests and look at the characteristics of this lens when we do use it for video work. So we're going to take a look at bokeh first, which of course is the out of focus area, focusing or concentrating on the work lights in the background. And at f1.8, you can see how much they really bloom out once we go to close focus. And if we drop it down to a 2.8, we're starting to see the beginnings of some geometric patterns, but we could also see kind of like this double bloom, kind of like outline shape on the highlights and back. And of course, once you go to f4, some more geometric patterns are evident on the light all the way on the right hand side and on these lower flares. 5.6, the patterns don't really get more distinct, but we still maintain that double bloom over the work lights, over the highlights. Now at f8, some of the geometric patterns are faintly more distinct. The more all around the highlight, the flares in the background, some of the flares. And that's the lens. So now let's look at the bokeh at 18 millimeters. And so far it looks like they're pretty much duplicating what we saw at 35. So no big changes here. So let's just watch what happens as we stop down. And now we'll look at some breathing characteristics with the help of our COVID-compliant coconut friend. And as you go back and forth, of course, we're looking for a change in magnifications. Does the lens seem to zoom in or out as we go from far to near focus? With this pattern, it's a little easier to see breathing. Now, as you go to close focus, it does look like it does zoom in a little bit, and going to distance, it does zoom out. So, not bad. It's not bad. There's definitely a little bit of movement, but not a lot of breathing. Now, this graph is also really good for checking distortion on our lenses. And at 35, it is looking pretty straight all around. And at 16, of course, we do see a little bit of barrel distortion. And that is like the mild fisheye effect, where the center of the lens looks like it's protruding towards us, distorting towards us. It's getting larger. For flare characteristics, it's pretty neutral. We're seeing like a small orb, glowing orb up here by the light. As I move a little closer to the light, yes, we'll see a little more very faint flares, by the grayscale. And there we see it over here. So our lens is showing pretty good flare control, as we would expect from a modern lens. This isn't an old lens with some wild flares, which is sometimes what we want, but many times not. The Sigma 18 to 35 Art Series Zoom. As you can imagine, this is a really handy lens for video work because it's a wide zoom and it's very fast. It's an unusually fast zoom lens. And again, when you need to just knock that background out of focus, you need that wider focal lengths, this lens works great. Overall, for motion work, the performance is pretty solid. It has a little bit of breathing, not a lot of breathing. The flare characteristics are very neutral. I mean, it's a modern lens that controls flares. It does a good job of controlling flares. Maybe not the most artistic, most interesting, but that's not when you need a lens like this. When you just need to get that wide shot at a wide open aperture, and that's what this does. As you can imagine, this is a pretty popular lens. As far as I can tell, looking with other people's kits and online, it's used quite often in video and for a lot of reasons. You know, it's just a good solid lens at a very reasonable price point. So that's a Sigma 18 to 35. Hope this was helpful, and we'll see you on the next one.